After the DM session 0, it's time for the players session 0, or should I say player prospects at the moment. Before we get started, hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell to get notified of new content. You can come chat with us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Discord. Watch our live D&D streams at twitch.tv/ZealZaddy. I'm Scott Coventry, and welcome to ZealZaddy. So, a week has passed since the DM's session 0, and now it's time to start the players session 0. Where do you begin? This is a great opportunity for them to ask any questions that came up after the DM session 0. Then you can make minor adjustments, and they can pitch you the idea. Yes, I go over stats, feats, skills, spells, all of the technical things, but I don't let that dominate the session. Sometimes I like to do a little bit of light role-playing at this point. I like to see how they play, get a comfort level with them, and see how they think. No dice, no rules, impromptu role-playing. Players love it because, for the first time really, they get to experience being the character. I recommend doing the player session 0s individually. It reduces the time pressure on the players while they wait around while you role-play. It also allows you to really get into the character concepts. Of course, doing it individually does take more time overall because you have to do it once for each player. It allows you to get more into their individual character stories and their backstory. It allows you to really understand what they're trying to do with their character and how they're trying to make it fit into your world. Finally, it gives them a feeling for how you run, to decide if your game is really for them. If it's not a good fit, it's not a good fit. I had one friend say after the previous video, 2 session 0s, what do you want to do? Bore the players to death? Get on with the adventure. But I just disagree for role-playing heavy games. For monster killing games, why even have a session 0? Running the players session 0 together is faster. It forces the players to think of their character as part of a team, which is definitely an asset to any DM. But it sometimes has the unfortunate side effect of suggesting that you'd like them to min-max their characters. In my opinion, this approach is better for more combat-heavy games or in games where the players don't have as much invested in or even really necessarily care so much about the subtleties of their characters. For new DMs, know that the party will become more efficient and synchronized in combat. This is their audition, akin to a film director seeing the auditions of their actors. Beforehand, decide what's important to your game. Then look for those characteristics in the player auditions. But be open-minded, and if anything surprises you and you think that it could be a positive, be prepared to roll with that. Players still surprise me all the time. What's their understanding of your world, setting, DMing style, and type of game? Did they understand what you explained in the first session 0? If not, correct it or adapt it. Did you explain enough about the world's politics and current events? Did it have any effect on their backstory? I can't stress enough how powerful it is to listen to your characters and empower them to impact your world. Is it a world that they feel like they'd enjoy? If not, it's probably not the game for them. In Merle Schreibman's book, The Film Director Prepares, which I'll put a link to down below, he talks about castings. Once you start a casting session, don't read the actor right away, but instead sit and talk to them. Talk about the material, about their family, about their life, about music, about movies, or simply share your life with them. Just get to know them. It's the same with role-playing games. Learn about each other, respect each other, like each other. If a player doesn't fit, it's really just better to get another player. After all, you're going to be playing for months or even years. From the player's perspective, if a DM doesn't fit, it's better to find another game. There are plenty of games out there, especially if you're using a virtual tabletop. They've opened up the world to gaming, so now there's thousands of games to select from. I still think playing in real life, in the same room with your friends, is a better experience. But virtual tabletops are really bringing us together in a way that we never were before. The approximation of togetherness is getting better and better all the time. If you plan on streaming, there's an added layer of visual expression that you have to see in your players. It's way more important to be able to see it than just catch the subtleties that you would catch in a game where you're playing in one room. Do they express themselves clearly? Can you see their emotions, real or acted? Do they speak well on camera? Do they bring brilliant ideas, or do they help the party move forward through words or deeds? Are they truly conversational in what is essentially a public forum? In a combat-oriented game, those things may not matter as much, but I'd argue for a stream game, those things always matter. Eventually, experience will allow you to see positive signs and warning signs and to navigate accordingly. Personally, as a DM, I have a few player pet peeves, as does pretty much every DM I've ever known. I've denied players for each of these, as well as allowed players with each of these, with later regrets. If maximizing your stats and capabilities supersedes your interest in role-playing, then we'll have a problem. Most of my players care about all those things. They care about their stats and their spells and their ability to attack and defend, but they also build and weave those things into the story. If the Witch Bolt spell or using a cudgel fits the character, you use it. Worrying about maximizing these things and minimizing your flaws is boring. It also ruins the play for other players, especially those that aren't min-maxers. Now, in a game full of min-maxers, it's also boring, especially for the DM. There's nothing wrong with knowing the rules to D&D. Photographic memories are a good thing, right? But regurgitating the rules and challenging DM decisions all the time breaks storytelling. It makes everything have to stop all the time. Happy people make for a happy room. Now, as far as negative people are concerned, there's two that I find to be really problematic. Downers. Players that bring negatively charged comments, that find joy in misery, that rarely and only as a token effort say anything to elevate play or players. Angry players. Now, this is not the same as excitable players. That's a cool trait. These players are always pissed off or seem to be. And worse, they're ready to be. Having a brooding character is fine. Having a character that sits off on the side to keep an eye on things, A-okay. But having a character that doesn't want to be involved with people, especially the actual party, will drive a DM crazy. Tolkien's Aragorn was the classic loner, but that was before he met the Fellowship. Once that happened, he set all of that aside for the betterment of the party and the story. I like to run games for heroes. I've seen players play evil characters in other games, and it seemed to work for the game in some regard, but it's just not for me, and it's just a pet peeve. What I do look for, though, a good attitude, party-centric thinking, players who want their characters to have a character arc, but also players who want to grow and develop as both people and players. I'm pretty sure every story-centric DM looks for those exact same traits. As the DM, you are constantly having to make tough choices, but none are more consequential than selecting the last few players that make the cut into your game and the ones that don't. Which is why the DM gets the big bucks, figuratively speaking. For me, I like to run for a maximum of 5 players. It sucks to say no to someone, especially if they're excited to play. Even one too many players can be a detriment to your campaign. When that happens, you should be as gentle as you can be, so contact them in private and tell them first so they don't hear it from some other player. If you're so inclined, you can give them some constructive feedback, but know that you're not obligated to do so. There are a few exceptional dilemmas that you may come across. A character that won't work in your game, but a player that will. I always opt for good players. So in a case like this, leave a little time to either create a new character or make a lot of adjustments so the character will work. A great character idea by a player you just don't believe in. Can you train them up? I encourage you, if the player is somebody that you think would be good, help them work on this character. Maybe they didn't express well on the paper, or when they talked about it, it didn't come across as clearly as you thought it would be. If you work with a player to get a character right, it can really boost their confidence for them to make this complicated or tough character work out in your world. A problematic player and character. Oh, that's not a dilemma. Deny, move on. If you've been a DM for very long, you'll have come across all of these things. So how have you handled them? Leave a comment down below and let us know. Welcome to the party. After the cuts have been made, tell the players that did make the cut that they're in. They should be proud, especially if they made it through a crowded casting. Praise them, make them feel good about the accomplishments, and start prepping the game. Don't look back with regrets. DMing is fun, but it also requires decision making. Just like a film director, you have to make the biggest, most important decisions in the game. The most important of all those decisions is which players you allow in. And you should want to make those decisions because they'll make your storytelling better. That decision-making role is one of the two traits that separate DMs from players. The other, by the way, is the desire to create something bigger than just a character. Something like a whole world. Choose your players wisely. It's the most important decision as a DM that you'll ever make. We have 2 companion series, World Building Bootcamp, that helps you improve your storytelling and world building, and Map Making Bootcamp that helps you build world maps and battle maps for your games. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up, subscribe, and click the bell to get notified of new content. Also, come chat with us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or Discord. You can watch our live D&D streams or other game systems at twitch.tv/ZealZaddy. I'm Scott Coventry. Enjoy deeper storytelling in your role-playing games.